I think that's working, Oh, golly. Oh, that was chaos. Can you all hear me? Hello, everyone. Hi. Oh, it's been an evening. It has been an evening. Oh. So, enough of this waffle. For the audio-only people who hear this waffle and get annoyed every time, let's get moving. I'm presuming there is sound and people can hear it. I can see it in front of me. Tonight is what is tonight? Tonight we're going to be going through. So this I tweeted earlier about it. In fact, you know what? I better do that. I better go. I better do this. I better go. We are live, right? I'll just do that now. We are live. Many exclamation marks, and then pin that tweet. Lovely. Happy days. So, no. Oh, I'm not here. Let's go big face. Let's get my hello everyone. Oh, that's better. Hello. Oh, so 100 episodes happened. Well, actually, technically happened a few weekends ago. Hello to everyone who was there. That was brilliant. I had a lot of fun, and it was fun joining the episode afterwards as well. It was nice. I don't have a drink because I didn't have time because I got in from the office and then immediately put this episode together, and now it's now. So if I die midway through, if I collapse, then or someone who might have. Oh, by the way, Simon, you've sent me a thing, and I will open it. I've managed to not do it yesterday, and then haven't done it today. Anyway, I'll get around to it. So, professional as ever. Yes, indeed. Waffle. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I am waffling hopelessly. Let's get cracking, for goodness sake. So it's me. We're going to talk. The whole point of this episode is not self-indulgent. Well, maybe a little bit, but it's to remind us what we've done, because actually there's quite a lot of episodes that are quite good that I've quite enjoyed going back and reminding myself of to put this together, and it's also to allow you to ask any questions that you haven't, that maybe you didn't get a chance to ask, or maybe it's episodes that you've forgotten about, or episodes that you didn't watch. Any questions that come up, we'll try and get through them we're going to try and get through 100 episodes in an hour. We'll see how we do on that front. Yeah, well, just we're going to get cracking. But anyway, so that's all fine. Let's go back to No Face. There's no news because I didn't have time to set up. There's no coronavirus stats because I didn't have time to set it up. So there's going to be next week's a pre-record, so there aren't any of them in then either. So we're going to be behind. And then the week after that, it's going to be an interesting report, but I will catch up with some of the news, I think. But we might need to just do a news catch-up episode the week after. Yeah, it's fine. We'll do the corona stats in a couple of weeks. By that point, we'll have had a good little trace as well, I think. I think, given all the tweets about trains being full, I think we're going to be a fair chunk of the way back up again. I might post what I might do is post the stats on Permanent Rail Engineering's Twitter account tonight, just so it's done. What else? Yeah, we'll do. There is quite a bit of news, huge amounts of news, but we're going to do that later. Oh, so. Let's do this thing. What are we starting with? Yeah, all these episodes. Look at them all. Look how many episodes there are. And they can all fit nicely into a lovely high-quality PNG here with all of them in a nice array because I updated all the original thumbnails with Apple Brief on. So, yeah. Anyway, enough of that. That is self-indulgent. What we're going to do is... No, the Big Face label isn't new. I think we've had like months of... Or there's certainly like quite a few episodes of the Big Face label. I'm pretty sure we have. Anyway, right. Enough waffling. Let's get cracking, shall we? Let's kick off the show. You know what I need to do, though? Because I haven't actually written it down here. Let's go back to this bit where I'm going to... And you're going to hear the critical ping, because, you know what I've not done? Every episode of #RailNatter so far, brackets, all episodes... summarized. There we are. It's as if a professional has put it together, and everything is fine and working well, as you can see. Oh my goodness! Welcome to tonight's show. Oh, there it is, look, it's Intercity 225, and it is fading away. Look at that, lovely. Oh my goodness. And look, it's my miniaturized face. So there is me, Do you remember this thing? This whole RailNet thing, how it started? It was a long time ago. It was absolutely blinking ages ago, in fact. And if we remember the first episode? It was kind of subsequently renamed. Basically, we did it on Periscope. And subsequently renamed and then renamed again. I very much called it the Shonky Pilot, because the only trouble with it being the first episode that people watch if they start watching the playlist is that it's dreadful and it doesn't give them the best feeling of what it's like, which is kind of why at some point I need to put together a bit of a RailNatter trailer, a compressed sort of trailer of what RailNatter actually is. I've no idea how I'm going to do that. Please do send your suggestions for your favourite bits in all the episodes. If any of you have got too much time on your hands, go back and find your favourite bits where maybe I lose my shit or something, and suggest those to me so that I can compress them into a trailer of some kind. All suggestions welcome. Anyway, we just did a bit of a Q&A on High Speed 2, and to be honest, we didn't get that many people involved. We got a few people, it was nice, it was a good Q&A, but it wasn't as much as we kind of get nowadays for episodes where loads of people get involved. But it was still nice. It was a bit of a soft start, and it went well, and I enjoyed it to the point where I decided to do another one. And the next one, if you remember Britain's Rail Pinch Points, this one, I don't think this one had any slides. This was just, again, it was me, just my face, but it was through YouTube, so it was higher quality, but it was still sort of a bit shonky. We hadn't quite, I could have used some slides here, but I didn't. It was only really by episode 2. This was talking about pinch points, by the way. Episode 1 was talking about pinch points. It was off the back of that Channel 4 documentary that I've been in with what's his face, and it was trying to be used as an excuse to. Well, to be honest, it ended up being quite a good documentary because they did, the first time a documentary actually placed the blame squarely at the feet of government, in a way that I hadn't seen in a documentary before. So it was actually not a bad documentary, even though it had himself fronting it. But anyway, that was episode 1. Episode 2 is where we kind of started getting a feel for the format, wasn't it? I quite enjoyed episode 2, and going back through it was quite nice. We talked about 158s, which are like my favourite DMU probably, because I used to travel in them a lot as a kid. These are the trains that I grew up with, and we were talking about kind of why people feel attached to certain types of train. For me, it's because these are what I grew up with. These were trains. This was a train. It was a box that moved around, and you went in it, and you got in it, and you were going somewhere amazing and magical. I was going to the far north. I was going to Carl Colch. I was going to Dundee because my brother had to see the orthodontist. I don't know. But it was always a very, very exciting experience, and I was very pleased when we hopped on a train. We were going to like Huntley, or I was hopping on to go on my bicycle. Actually, by the time I was going on bicycles, it was a 170. But that's another story. But also it gave us an excuse to reminisce about the Class 151, which is just an awesome looking unit. Look at that. I wish it still existed. Basically, it don't anymore. Very sad. Oh, very sad. What documentary was the rail pinch points? I don't know. Search Britain's rail pinch points. No, that's not right. Search. Oh, I can't remember actually. If you search my name and pinch points on Twitter, it'll come up. Yeah, they're still running in Aberdeen, the 158s. Then we hop forwards to episode 3, which was talking about rail over the Pennines. This was a bit of a random episode, actually. We just kind of looked at the Pennines. So first of all, we defined what the Pennines were. You can see the watershed there, and essentially we defined some rules for how many lines cross the Pennines. I can't remember what the point of this episode was. It was just kind of a fun. It was sort of a fun exploration of the railways across the Pennines, but it was making a point because we compared it to like the railways over the Pennines with the railways across the Central Belt. And there's a bit of a bleak feeling. It's a shame that this hasn't changed at all. There are more closed railways than open railways over the Pennines, and none of them are electrified. I should put my little face up in the corner, shouldn't I? Should I do it? Shall I come up in the corner? Hello, it's me. I'm in front of the 2020, but that's fine. Also, look, it's Cabin Sketch. Remember the old font? I definitely prefer the new one. The old one's kind of fine, but I see it around a lot, and it also doesn't come up quite as nicely in thumbnails. So I'm a big fan of the old. I'm a big fan of Applebury. I think for me it feels more RailNatter, although I suppose it's a little bit reminiscent to look back at these slides. Anyway, so I was looking at wires over the pen, or the kind of the. It was interesting to just look at the Pennines in abstract. It was quite fun. Suggestions for episodes like that were a bit kind of abstract. Again, that'd be fun. Enjoyed that. Then we had our first guest. We were honoured to have Mike Muldoon, who's a lot of time for Mike. Hello, shout out to Mike. Chris McKenna is saying, was it a background primer to why reopening Woodhead isn't the best idea? Yeah, possibly, actually. That's a good point. It could have been that, Chris, yeah. Very good point. The point was my enthusiasm for reopening Woodhead. Thank you, Renault Twinko. Yep. The only thing listed... Wait, what? The only thing listed on my IMDb... I don't have an IMDb page. That's not me, sure. How many Crayon episodes have I done? I think I've only done 2. No, you're right. They are Crayon episodes, Matt. You're right. I can't remember. 2, I think. We'll get to those. We will get through them, Matt. Don't worry. We're going to go right the way through all of them. Episode 4 was about hydrogen trains with Mike, and it was a really good episode. There's lots of detail. There's quite a lot of interesting information. The slides appear to have gone a bit busty. That's a bit weird. I presume it's because there was some custom Ulston fonts in there or something. I don't know, but there's quite a lot of interesting information in there, and well worth jumping back to that episode if you want to find out. Obviously, I've written about hydrogen trains since, so it's probably worth reading that in context as well to see why things haven't happened. But that was a really good episode, and it showed that the guest format works quite nicely. And so that was a bit of a stepping off point. That was really, I think, when that happened, suddenly it was like, oh wait, this is potentially a thing. This could be a thing. Because the thing about RailNatter is that it's not, it's just me, and people are telling me I do have an IMDb page. That's very strange. I did not think that, and that's very weird. Well, maybe if we've got time, we'll look at that at the end of the episode. RailNatter is about. It's just one person, and podcasts don't work with one person, really. It's a bit random. It's a bit sound of your own voicey, which admittedly isn't. But what makes RailNatter good and nice and special, and a thing that I cherish and love anyway, is you lot in the chat. Is the interaction, and so that gives it a bit of a vibrancy. It means people can get involved, and I can talk enough that it sort of then works in audio only format. But it feels like there's a bit of a discussion happening because of the you lot in the chat, you lovely lot, acting me in and asking questions. So yeah, so I think it works, but having a guest elevates it a lot, particularly for pre-records. Having a guest means that I can do pre-records with a guest, and it kind of works, without being too much of a problem. Although obviously it's nice for you lot to be able to question guests too. So it was a big moment, really, I think, having a guest in. So, Mike, thanks so much. You're a great guest. Maybe we'll have you back to see what progress is. In fact, we'll definitely have Mike back to talk about progress. Episode 5, we had Dr. DT as our second guest. Very dear friend of the show. And we talked about beer. There we are. Obviously, there's St. Pancras. Couldn't not talk about St. Pancras. But yeah, we chatted about beer with Dr. DT. It was great. Let's see. 22nd of March 2020 was the first ever RailNatter. Is that right? Oh, crikey. Yeah. The chat is definitely the best bit of RailNatter. Yeah, or one of the best bits. Yeah, thanks, Michael C. That's the date on the YouTube upload. No, I think it was a bit before that. And no, the first episode was after. So I uploaded the first episode after the second episode went up. So you'll have to do a bit of digging. You have to go back to Periscope to work it out, or possibly the first mention of RailNatter as a hashtag on Twitter. Right, episode 6. Now this was a beast, and I loved every second of it. The APT episode, the alternative history APT episode, and there was some corking stuff in this one. I forgot to get rid of all the animations. In fact, that's intensely annoying. I'm going to do, wait a minute, Control A and remove animations. We don't want animations for this. There we go. That's better, isn't it? No, not yet. Steady on, Tim. There's the APT episode, and one of them was, for example, like making this nice comparison with of our magical APT, our made-up APT with the 390, and kind of comparing them, which is quite interesting. I really did enjoy this episode. It was good fun. It'd be great to do another alternative history, actually. They're quite time consuming, so you need to think of a good subject, a subject that I think the reason I did this one is because it embodies quite a lot. It captured a lot. It captured like why HS2 is a good idea. It captured why beaching wasn't necessarily. It captured rose tinted spectacle stuff that I think is a running theme kind of through all of RailNatter episodes. The idea that context is critical, and political context, technology doesn't exist in isolation. So yeah, it was a really great episode. It was just a lot of fun, and I'm glad. I think all of you enjoyed it as well. Good feedback, and we got Tim to talk about the architecture the railways built, which was lovely. That was a really fun. The first one was really fun because it was quite early on, and it was the architecture was new. It was still quite a bit of an unknown, but Tim was kind of riding on the energy. I mean, he's exhausted, bless him, because he always is exhausted because he does way too much. But he was just he got numbers back, and people were watching it in big numbers, and the whole industry had come out to bat for it, and it was just really nice. It was just a lovely episode. That was episode 7, yeah. Obviously, we had Severn Junction signal box, but possibly one of my favourite bits was actually these slices of potential replacement bridge at Ribblehead. I thought these were great fun. Really like these, particularly this one in the foreground. It's a terrific looking concrete arch sort of I don't know what the exact structural form. I mean, it's an arch structure with this sort of vertical ribbing providing the support for the deck above. It's just really satisfying. It's quite literally the inverse. It's like as pure as it can be, the inverse of a suspension bridge. A suspension bridge is the precise inverse of an arch bridge. The reason why suspension bridge is so spindly is because it's relying on everything being in tension, whereas an arch bridge is relying on everything being in compression. So I just really like that. So they're cool. I'd love to go and see them. I need to remind myself exactly where they are. They're in one of the community museums. Then we did a Fourth Bridge episode. I think this was was this a pre-record? Oh no, maybe it wasn't a pre-record. I can't remember. No, it wasn't a pre-record because I think Morpeth was my first pre-record. We did a Fourth Bridge. This was a bit of a cheeky episode because it was just me kind of basically reading through my article on the Fourth Bridge. But it's fun because we got to explore some stuff, and we explored some interesting thematic stuff on the fact that everyone talks about people remember the Fourth Bridge, but they don't talk about the new infrastructure that had to be constructed for the benefit of the Fourth Bridge, and indeed the knock-on effect, the negative knock-on effects that the construction of the Fourth Bridge had on capacity through Edinburgh. And so we kind of explored that a bit, which is good fun. So that was a good episode. And as an FYI, I will definitely be going up into the Fourth Bridge this year for a Rail Natter episode. So stay tuned for that. That should be a lot of fun. I'm hoping I'm going to be getting up in March. We'll see what happens. That's you heard it here first, folks. Episode 9, we had John on. This was the only ever Rail Natter that didn't go out on a Wednesday. So this is the only week where Rail Natter, for the Rail Natter trivia fans, the episode 9, John was very ill, bless him. So we delayed to Friday, and it was a great episode. It was good fun. We looked at some history, we looked at some rankings, we spoke a load of nonsense about John's rankings versus my thoughts on rankings. John kind of won me around, and then I swung away again in more recent months again. But John fought a fair fight for his rankings of the different stations. It was good fun. I enjoyed it. It was a great episode. And so there was quite a lot of detail in there. It was quite a long episode. It was good fun. Episode 10, we had my old chum, Mr. Priestley, on. Alex joined us to talk about weather. I should have called this Railways versus Weather because it's part of the Railways versus series, isn't it? But at this time, I called it Weather versus Railways. And it was good. There was a lot of detail. We talked about Dawlish. We talked about all sorts of things to do with weather. We talked about weather, the interaction of weather and climate. Actually, a lot of the slides in here form my... I now use these as the basis of some of my teaching material at the Permanent Way Institution. So, it was a good episode. It was nice to have Alex on with his incredibly loud fan. Yes, so... time it right, and I'll be on the bridge for the 124th Rail Natter. Oh, that's an interesting one. live broadcast from that shed. Oh, maybe. Anyway, right. So sorry, we were getting away from ourselves. So yes, we had Alex with us, didn't we? Oh, crap, we're only at episode 11. Okay, right. Melanie joined us. Melanie, fantastic guest. We have to get Melanie back at some point to talk about trains not crashing into each other, going from A to B. It was a great episode. We had lots of detail as Melanie stood in front of many, many relays. It was great. It was a really fantastic episode. Lots of detail. It was a really nice, kind of nerdy, juicy, sort of techie episode about signalling, and it's a really nice compliment. It complements the other signalling episode that we did much later really nicely. The two really nicely kind of complement each other. So thanks, Melanie. That was a terrific episode. Really enjoyed that. Melanie's lots of fun and very, very knowledgeable. So really good person to have on as a guest. We had Dr. DT back to talk about beaching. Bum bum bum. Episode 12, beaching. And what did we learn about beaching in this episode? Well, we learned to stop moaning and ranting about beaching and to start going on about these people who are the ones who actually signed off on the sacrifices and the slices and the problems on the railway. And we basically learned to stop referencing beaching. I'll remember this. Stop referencing beaching. Stop it. Stop doing it. And we had Jeff on. Remember? Does anyone heard of Jeff? He's called Jeff Marshall. He has a very small YouTube channel. He does kind of some sort of videos and bits and pieces. Yeah, worth going and checking out. We had Jeff on, and he was talking about just general underground stuff. It was just an excuse to get Jeff on and chat about stuff. And there's Jeff looking pleased inside a fun and slightly strange spiral staircase that you can wander up and down in the tube. Yeah, it was a fun episode actually. We should have to do another collaboration. Episode 14. Well, we did collaborate a bit, didn't we, on the HS2 video. Episode 14. Oh, building railways, but with less. We had Prab on. Prab joined us, my colleague Prab, and we were talking about. We covered quite a lot of things, but we talked about embodied carbon and operational carbon, and we talked about calculators for carbon, and we talked about quite a bit in relation to how we currently calculate carbon emissions of construction, and it was a good episode. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. There's a lot of interesting stuff to pick up, and hopefully some food for thought. It was good. And we had Charlie on. Charlie joined us to talk about art on the Underground. It was a long episode. We covered a lot of art on the Underground. Possibly my favourite. We were talking about Labyrinth, so I quite enjoyed the discussion about the various mazes across the network. That was good fun. Yeah, so it's it's a fun episode. And we were talking about some of the themes that came up in architecture actually, which was about the fact that public transport is a public space, and those public spaces shouldn't be stripped to the bare minimum and the cheapest, lowest common denominator junk. These are places and spaces that people spend time in, and they should be places that are pleasant, engaging, and stimulating. In fact, So yeah, it was good. Andrew White joined us talking about the upsides of closing railways, a fun kind of contrarian episode. But obviously, it was talking about the kind of the assets that you get with this infrastructure that has been left behind, and what you can do with it. So it was a fun episode. I enjoyed that. Whether we should be converting any former railways into BRT is bus rapid transit, which doesn't exist, by the way. It's just better buses. That's fine. Or narrow gauge. Andrew and I didn't agree on the narrow gauge stuff, but it's some interesting discussion we had at the end of the episode, I think. Woodhead. Episode 17, the Woodhead route. We did do Woodhead. Oh, any questions here? The concrete episode. Which was the concrete episode? When was that? Labyrinth, not maze. Yeah, I did say Labyrinth. I said Labyrinth to start with. Oh. I don't know. Did we do? Oh, yes, it was the concrete episode. Sorry, Prabs was the concrete episode. Yes. Good stuff. The art one was really good. Yes. Hello, Jennifer. Hello. Episode 17, the Woodhead route. Yeah. And we talked about the fact that basically, if you were going to reopen Woodhead, you'd end up with a new alignment pretty much for the whole thing, with new construction into Sheffield, new construction into Manchester. It would be a completely new railway. So at that point, why are you using that slightly weird dog-legged route when you could actually potentially cut an alternative, more direct route from Sheffield to Manchester? I think there's a. So that was a fun episode. I enjoyed that. It was debunking that one of many red flags, and of course it came up with this quote that I made up in this episode, which was, just because closing a railway was a bad idea doesn't mean that reopening is a good idea, and I absolutely think that's the case for when people go on and on about Woodhead. So yeah, it was a good episode. I think it was one of the benchmark episodes. And then Morpeth, I think possibly the first pre-record, episode 18, Morpeth Curve and all the trouble it causes. This is a fun one. I need to do a collaboration, maybe revisit this or another theme with Red for Danger, the other podcast. Is it Red? No. Also, what's the name of their podcast? Everyone, what's the name of the Railway Accidents podcast? It's very, very good, and we're overdue a collaboration. What's it called? Tell me. Oh, CNER. Hello, CNER. Haven't been able to catch a live one in a long time. Hello. Thanks. Yes, I owe you some stuff. Hello. Yes, hello. Hello, the Reeds. Yes, I owe you some stuff. CNER. I'll be on it. Right. So. Yes, we were talking about bulldozing bungalows with sleeper trains and also appearing to place police officers on top of them. This is a fun episode. I quite enjoyed this episode, even though it was a pre-record, so I didn't have you lovely lot with me. But yeah, we were just talking about bungalows and the curse of Morpeth, and we talked a bit about Morpeth boards and things. Yeah, it's a fun one, a fun and a short one to skip back to and watch. Yes. And now, in episode 19, STEM or Steam, with Lucy. Lucy Pryor joined us, and this came out from whether I continue to vigorously disagree with the idea that STEM should be called STEam. I think the value in STEM being a thing itself is dubious, but I think adding arts to STEAM, I continue to think that it undermines. It seems to suggest that engineering is not an artistic or a creative kind of pursuit. So I remain unconvinced. But it was a fun episode. Lucy joined us. We talked about there's a guy's junk. We talked about all sorts of things. Actually, it was a bit of a whirligig of an episode. We kind of covered all sorts. Yes, real railways have curves, Marley C. Well, not ones that are 90 degrees with 125 miles an hour either side. Episode 20. Now this was fun, and I've got so just what ... should Britain's railways have anyway? Several of these. The trouble is, it felt a bit silly to be coming up with these in the midst of like Williams and in the midst of IRP and blah blah blah. So they kind of went on the back burner. But episode 20 was so just what structure should Britain's railways have anyway, which I quite enjoyed. And we ended up with maybe a bit. It ended up like the outcome was like, oh, this seems a bit messy. We're proposing to have loads of train operating units, but I stand by it. I actually stand by it. I stand by I stand by the way that this structure would provide autonomy for the urban areas, and for the kind of the regions, and then you'd have a single in-city operator. I kind of stand by the structure. So you'd have one in-city kind of national operator, the in-city operator. You'd have 9 regional operators. So you'd have the country being split into 9 regions, and then you'd have 13 sort of urban operators that would be tied to kind of urban, they'd be tied to the combined authorities or the elected mayors in those respective areas. I stand by it. I do stand by this. So, oh yeah, there's a little map showing how the regions. So it doesn't look so crazy when you split the regions like that, but you can see, kind of have this. The transport for Devon is its own one, which there was a logic behind it. I think it was because of the urban areas that you have, and it just meant that there was an even split of population. I think that's right. Is that right? We went anyway. Go back to the episode to watch and find out. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I was. I will do more sort of episodes a bit like that, because I think it's a worthwhile and interesting episode. Now relevant for reasons. Episode 21, light rail is not a metro, and other gripes. Well, advances on this, I think. Advances on this. So we kind of talked about like people movers, trams, light rail, medium capacity rail, rapid transit, metro rail, commuter rail. Actually, we kind of said that these are the categories we should stick with. I think these categories are all stupid now. I've changed my mind, and they're going to be new categories. It was basically like, the whole point of this is, if it's a metro, great. If it isn't a metro, ask why. And it was about the hashtag not a metro sort of theme. But I've been working on a new flowchart. We're going to do a number 2 episode of this coming up. Another rail natter looking at this, where we're going to sort of create our own categories that are more meaningful to, and it should be what everyone else calls things, and it'll be what I call things, how I categorize things. This isn't the final flowchart, by the way. This is the work in progress one. That rightly so, people have pointed out that it doesn't quite work, because I need to. There needs to be a capacity element for the bus thing, and I need to maybe split the non-train stuff into a bit more. But anyway, it's a work in progress. I think this is going to be a fun episode. So when I finally finish this flowchart, we'll do an episode on it. So TBC on that front. Then we had Gary along. Gary Keener joined us. Episode 22, Making Electrification Stick. And then we kind of talked a bit about the book, but mostly it was talking about kind of little innovative whiz gigs. We talked about fizzy knitting as well, Project Fizzy Knitting. We talked about some of the innovations that are making electrification, stick, but also just kind of less complex and something that theoretically is more rapidly deliverable, which was good. It was a good Metro 2 Electric Boogaloo. Yes, thanks, Brian. So this was a good episode. Yeah. Then Luke, doesn't look too bad from your end. I just had some weird connection issues. Everything fine? Tell me if there's anything. At me if anything isn't fine. Yeah, this is great. I need to do some more art ones. We need to speak to some. I'd like to speak to the architect from Crossrail. I think that'd be really nice. Just actually speak to some of the architects and get a really sort of, as I said, I think public transport spaces are special. They're very special, and actually, there's a real value in us making them special places to be. Not least because it makes them appealing places to be, and people feel comfortable and safe traveling by train, and indeed find it an enjoyable experience. So. So this is a really nice episode, and showing how kind of liminal these spaces can feel, and it was really, really good. Episode 24, we had Edward Lee joining us. Is road pricing the future? This is a good one, another very, eminently relevant one. And we looked at kind of motoring income and motoring outgoings, and the fact that the income from motoring is less than the outgoings in the current tax regime. Which was interesting. So then we looked at kind of, if you change that to road pricing, what would be the difference? So you look at the if you had a user cost and then had a certain factor, what could those, what could the tax revenue be, ignoring kind of VD and fuel duty? And it was interesting to look at that, look at those figures, and basically to find out that, oh man, I really should have got rid of the animations in here, for this episode. Hopefully. I don't think there are any more. There are some. Let me just get rid of those. Good, fine, whatever. Sorry. So it's looking at current tax revenue, looking at potential road pricing revenue, and saying that you can shape road pricing to be pretty much cost neutral. And given that fuel duties continue to be frozen, that's not. It's not a Not a crazy idea. We're on episode 25. We need to pick the pace up, don't we? Railnetter, episode 25. The Engineer's Guide to Being a Good Craneista. This is Craneista episode 1. And we kicked off Network 2050, or rather the shaping. Network 2050 existed for a long time, but this is the episode that turned it into being a specific project related to you lovely volunteers that are doing that work in the background. So this was some stuff that Will Deacon had been pulling together. We looked at 7 rules for crane easting, which was think about what it's for, think about what it's for again. Don't just reuse old alignments. Don't just bulldoze everything. Mimic real railway geometry. Slap a cost on it. Use big numbers. And don't do anything fancy. These are our rules for crane easting. Episode 26, How Do Sleeper Trains Work? We had Edward Schofield joining us to talk about sleeper trains. I think this picture is the one that like embodied the challenges, the kind of inter-border challenges that you have. It was a good episode. Lots of you have been asking for a sleeper train episode, and still some of you ask for more sleeper train episodes. We'll do more. It's an interesting subject, isn't it? Episode 26, the TDNS. Oh, good grief. Yeah, so this is a page turn through the TDNS, which was obviously a beast. It was the longest episode up to that point by a long way. And kind of this is probably the most important slide, which was looking at the ratio of electrification versus hydrogen and battery. Actually, I've updated this slide now. This is the version of the slide I use now. It looks like this. So obviously it's got the new font, and I've got rid of the kilometers. I'm just looking at the percentages, and you can see 86% versus 86% conventional electrification, 9% hydrogen, and 5% battery. So I've just tidied it up to make it a little bit more clear as to what the priorities are and how you would, what the TDNS determined based on science. Still need an urban transit crane easting episode. We do, don't we? The challenge with that is it's outside of my personal engineering expertise, so we need someone else to come and join us, yeah. Quail rail, quail natter, British quail, all of the above. Quails on rails, Dr. DT joining us again to talk about quails. This was a brilliant episode. There's a quail. Very nice. There we go. You can hear it again. There it is. This is a bit where I work out whether I've looped the audio on this one and it's going to keep going around forever. It might be. Anyway, point being, there is a quail. And this was an interesting episode. This was an interesting episode for a variety of reasons. But it kind of went through, it really broke down supply chains in a really interesting way, and the kind of complexities of supply chains. It was brilliant. It was just a great episode. And so yeah, we kind of went through all these things of time and distance criticality and growth and decline. It was just a really good, interesting episode. Has nothing to do with quail maps, unfortunately. We tried to work out whether it did. It has nothing to do with quail maps. Episode 29. 100-ish ways for railway rails to fail. This was a fun episode as well. Kind of a low-rated episode. It kind of went under the radar, this one, but actually I was quite pleased with the outcome of this one. Does anyone remember this one? We kind of went through loads of surface defects. We went through all sorts of defects of rails and ways that railway rails fail, and it allowed us to learn loads of stuff about kind of different defects and how they might be caused, and also how we maintain railways. There's loads of stuff. But I think possibly it got overshadowed by Perry Bar railway station, and it was the worst station design ever. It was just one of the most hilariously bad, and the graphics in it were from a computer game in the 1990s. It was just, it was like Need for Speed 2 levels graphics. It just perhaps it got overshadowed by the Perry Bar fun, but anyway, yeah, there we go. We remember that. So, then we had the first of our Young Rail Professional Rail Week episodes with Harriet Glenn. It's the skills episodes. We need to do more episodes on skills, actually, because it's something I'm very passionate about. I was having an argument with someone recently about why skills and why there is a skills shortage. She seemed to think it was because universities are privatised. There's loads of stuff wrong with universities, but that's not why it is. It's more animations, look. Anyway, so we looked at some of the issues, increasing awareness at school level, investing in apprenticeships and on-the-job training, promote potential career progression in a range of roles. Fragmentation is a problem there. Addressing the gender pay gap and improving the image of the industry. Visible role models and myth busting. So some good sort of things that we could do to sort of improve things, but sadly all basically futile, because we obviously have to remember that the trouble is the challenges we have in the industry are fueled by these people, particularly HMT there at the front. So there's only so much we can do. But anyway, it was a good episode. It was fun to have Harriet on. We should have Harriet on again at some point. That'd be good. Another linchpin Railnatter episode, I think. This was I was very proud of and pleased with this episode, not least because it has captions. All the others have like auto captions. This one's got this one, Doug. Thank you so much, Doug, for doing the captions for this one, episode 31, level boarding. And we kind of came out with conclusions of, number 1, use the standards that we already have. Number 2, buy trains that actually fit the standard. And number 3, start a rolling national program of platform corrections to fit the current standard. There we are. Done. Solved. Solved it. That's level boarding. Easy. And also, it was like, I raised what the campaign for level boarding is. It's my logo there. It's a bit of a weird logo, but actually, it's LB. See? It's like a level platform bit. It's kind of got a... Anyway, there you are. Yes, level boarding. Richard Long joined us for episode 32, The Island of Tube Trains. And my favourite within the bit... I mean, there was loads of really nice visual feasts in this episode, and Richard's is lovely, and learned lots from him. But I think my favourite slide has to be this one of them gauge clearing the trains going through, and it kind of emulates with the stock that is still there, was still there now the old stock running. They just shoved a plywood shape to see whether the D trains would fit through. I love that. It's great. Gauging in action. There we go. Episode 33, Boris's stupid fixed link to Northern Ireland and whether it would work. And we looked in fair detail at quite a few of the different routes, the Kintyre, Galloway, Isle of Man, Irish, Mail and Tuskar route. And we came upon the fact that the Galloway route is the more favourable option to go to Northern Ireland, but because we got the stats up here. But we decided that it's the quickest for me in York as well, actually. But we decided that actually I still think the Irish Mail route and an upgrade of the North Wales Main Line is the better overall option, actually. So despite the fact that it's a much bigger engineering challenge. But yeah, the Galloway route is actually the one, the Explodey one is the favoured route, actually. There's what we discovered in that one. So yeah, this was good fun. Yes, the link is technically feasible. So... episode 34, we got John C. Stone joined us, a correspondence guide to Europe's railways. And I think my favourite bit of this was this image that John brought up showing all of the different S-Bahn systems, suburban rail systems in Germany. And this, like the UK, I will be creating and doing an episode on this for, first of all, I'm going to do one for the East Midlands, so that's an episode that's going to come up soon. But then I'm going to do an episode on like what suburban rail should look like in Britain. That would be... ideal. So yeah, we're going to do that and have a look and kind of look at the UK and look at what those maps might be like. I think that'd be really interesting. So we'll do that. That'll be fun. But yeah, thanks, John, for joining us. I know you possibly still listen to the audio-only form. Hello, John. Hi. Green Railnatter happened. Oh my goodness. Scenic rail tours of an hour-ish in length. Episode 35. We went from Inverurie to Elgin. I will be doing more of these, but the idea for this was it was a bit of a trial for a pre-record format where I actually go and do the journey myself. So it was a bit of a trial, but I think it worked quite nicely. I quite enjoyed it. It was a bit of a wander through the annals of time. This is where I grew up, 18 Middle Park, lovely. It's the local works in Inverurie, and it took us via an old friend as well here, the knackered Pacer prototype. There's a reason why these never found their way to Scotland properly. Anyway, other than in trial form, Simon joined us. Hello, Simon. Episode 36, What Exactly is Sustainability? It was a good episode. I enjoyed this. And I think this was probably one of the more satisfying images of what a transport hub really can look like. Many, many bicycles. Wonderful. That's Copenhagen. Yeah, very cool. Then possibly a fan favourite. Episode 37, Why is it so important to tell people that Hyperloop is bad? People refer back to this quite a lot. I know I haven't done a proper Hyperloop episode yet, but that's because it's kind of petered out. But yes, the theme of that is just call out gadget bands wherever and whenever you see them. Just call them out. Call them out. Is Japan's new maglev a gadget band? Yes, Tom, it absolutely is. Yeah, definitely. Then we had Lindsay joining us for episode 38, Get an e-bike for Christmas. I mean, there were lots of things that were fun in this one, but I think Lindsay's Sinclair was a particular highlight. Looking awesome. Yeah, it was a good fun episode, that, and I think I'm if I got an e-bike, I think it will be a folding e-bike that I'll get Lindsay to make and electrify. So yeah, it was good. It was a good episode, a pre-Christmas episode, that one, if you like. And then Ivana Abramovich joined us for the Slab Track episode, which was, again, a brilliant episode. Ivana's technical knowledge is fantastic. It's unsurpassed. She kept correcting me because I kept stacking it. It was good. It was good fun. It was a great episode, in fact. And here's just this epic image of all of these precast pour units all ready to be laid. It's quite cool. I mean, it's very cool, in fact. Love that. Oh, it folds. Marley C did get an e-bike after the episode, and it folds. Oh, fantastic. Is a Sinclair a gadget band? No, it's just it's PRT. It's personal. It's micromobility, which is good. Episode 40, we looked at 4 fatal derailments that changed my discipline permanent way for good. We looked at 4, but actually we're kind of covering 5. So Hither Green, Tattenhall, Olliskelf, Elgin, and Hatfield we looked at in reasonable detail to understand what went wrong from an engineering perspective. Obviously there were kind of operational problems in amongst that, but we talked about the engineering really. That was a good episode. Bonnie Price joined us for our first Christmas special. This was fun. So we did a Christmas special, episode 41. What do the railways do at Christmas? And we kind of looked in detail at. So this is a program, and we kind of looked in detail at what Christmas feels like when you're on shift. I'd been on shift I think the year before, and so this is an extract from the program of that work. Yeah, that was 2018. So yeah, it's good fun. I enjoyed that. Episode 42, we got Mr. Priestley back. Railways versus snow. Again, yeah, I should have flipped those words to keep the theme. It's 42, meaning alive. Episode 42, and we talked about snow, including, of course, the ridiculous GWR jet engine to clear snow situation. It was good fun. And then Roz joined us. We had Justin Rosniak. What a boon. The all-famous Justin Rosniak joined us to talk about US railroads and the fact that they can actually be pretty good. And it was this picture, this image, that I think just really nicely summed up that there are loads of good things about US railroads. And there's loads of freight stuff in there as well. It's just a great episode. But this image is just like, what a bridge. And I want to be there and experience this. Just, yes, very good. Yeah, man. It's the good stuff. It was a fun episode, and obviously anything to do with Roz is good fun because he's a very funny and clever man. Yes. Episode 44, we had James Bennett on. James, hello. Shout out to you, James. We had, I'll just keep, yes, there's things going up in the chat room. Tap me in if you've got a question. What is the South Wales Metro? This was a great episode. Very, very popular episode. It was a great start to the year, and it sort of kicked off the unofficial tradition of having a Welsh-themed episode to start the year. Given that it's either the engine giving us the theme tune, it feels fair. And so we kind of looked at what the proposals are and understood them. And yeah, it was a really good episode. Really, really nice, deep, in-depth exploration. And with TFW's blessing as well, which is nice. So it's nice to have kind of the blessing of the organisation to talk frankly about it. I was very, very pleased. And TFW, if you want to come send anyone else to talk about the plans and how they're progressing, then please do so. Also my client at the moment. Hello, TFW. Friends. Hi, Alex. So, episode 45. There we go. Look, it's Hauntology. It is Hauntology. Episode 45, a page turn through the National Infrastructure Commission's Strategic Rail Links Report, the Rail Needs Assessment. Ouch, is all I can say about that, because they are just all beholden to HM Treasury, and of course they came up with the proposals that became the IRP. And as we know, based in a deeply flawed way on the ratio of 1-to-1 for new long distance capacity to commuting capacity, released commuting capacity, which is wildly a wild underestimation. It's even HS2, their estimations are very, very conservative, estimated between 2 and 3, double or even triple the release capacity from free long distance passengers or seats. So this was just quite something, quite spectacular. Very impressed that they managed to screw this up so badly, and then obviously that fed into the IRP, which is a complete screw up. So yeah, ouch. We talked about railways versus coronavirus, episode 46. It was just a bit of a Q&A, wasn't it? It's just to get people's feelings. There's a lot of worry in the industry, and indeed, to be honest, a lot of that has been borne out. The industry is in crisis again, as a result of the Treasury seeing this as an excuse to do what it's always wanted to do, which is just shrink the railway system. So Shaps is in the process of presiding over the larger reduction in services than happened under Beeching. So have fun with that. I hope if it returns, reverses, great. But at the moment, all his talk about reversing Beeching, and he's actually done more bad things to the railway than Beeching has. COVID is a blip, climate change is a longer term trend was the kind of the theme of that. I think that still holds true very much. Oh, yes. Episode 47, we had Tim back for Architecture 2. And there's loads of fun stuff in this one, but we looked in the inside of this massive clock, which I think this is Huddersfield, isn't it? Yes, I think it is. And it's just some interesting old, the old sign, sheets from 1986 there, when it was last checked, which is quite fun. The inspection dates for the mechanism. Yeah, really good fun. Good episode. Love Tim. All the Tim episodes are joyous. We need to find an excuse to get Tim on. There's another rail natter we were talking about, actually, that he's going to come on and do, but for the future. Now this is a brilliant, by a order of magnitude, the most popular rail natter episode, because the QAnon people found it, because they started going off on one about all the QAnon stuff that happens in these tunnels. But it was a brilliant episode. Oh my, Anna's she was such a great guest, and this whole episode was brilliant. It was like architecture and history and social context. Just honestly a great episode. One to just have a cup of tea, go back and watch again. Just a brilliant, brilliant episode. I love this episode so much. And here's Craig. Just maintaining some of the cars in the trains that run underneath the Capitol building. It was out on the back of the invasion of the Capitol building by a bunch of right wing fascists. But it was just a generally very interesting subject matter, and it covered loads of stuff. Just covered so much ground, but it covered so much ground without being super super long as well. It was just a great episode, fantastic episode, loved it. Thanks. Hi Craig. Ciao. Episode 49, West Yorkshire Mass Transit. This was a great episode. It was a page turn, so I don't really have a slide for it. It was a page turn, and it was another very very popular episode. And as we've seen, government has no interest in delivering it. They've promised jam tomorrow with this £50 million report looking at whether it's feasible, and that's going to continue to get watered down. And it's not even promised. It's just, we might give you this if we fancy it. So screw those guys. Then episode 50 was another friend of the show, John Morgan Christoph, joined us. Hi, John. Talking about space shuttle rocket boosters. This is a really fun episode. It's not had the viewership that I thought it would. I don't know why. Go back and watch it. It's so good. It's such a fun episode. So much nerdy detail in it. It's great. Go watch it. It's good. There's as I say, lots of very very good solid nerdy detail in there with these ships and the boosters, and yeah, it's great. It's great. It feeds nicely into the space shuttle. Well, There's Your Problem podcast episode as well. It's good. Mike Asbester joined us. Dr. Mike Asbester for Railway Staff Safety Through Time. Another good episode 51. And we went through loads of stuff. We looked at victims of incidents and accidents and potentially fatal victims of people who died in accidents as well as been very badly injured. That was a good episode. It's just interesting to bring those parallels into the current railway. So it's not only is it fascinating from a historical perspective. I was spotting some recent stuff about GWR safety practice, and it's just interesting to see the echoes through time. Very interesting. Episode 52, it was a celebratory episode of doing a year of this, and here we are nearly 50 episodes later, nearly 2 years worth of Rail Natter. And we've got that was the 1 year special, and all of the Patreon supporters joined us. It was good fun, wasn't it? 53, episode 53. Oh, we've got 10 minutes left of this episode, which is scary. Episode 53, anyway. It was a page turn through the Rail for All report. It was a good report. I felt good about that. It was a good page turn. What's interesting to look at is whether this report has now that the Greens are in power and indeed are theoretically mostly in control of transport. And they've got a big rail budget now, $4+ billion. Is the Rail for All report actually happening in full? Any Scottish folks, people who are in Scotland, Scottish Greens folks, can you tell me what is that happening? Is it happening? Every rail now has loads of nerdy detail. Thanks, Adam. We do our best. Toxic Games says it's only a few months until the Leeds Loop Road gets closed and the 4-lane road outside the station and City Square gets pedestrianised. Is that actually happening? That's fantastic if it is. Brilliant. That's good. I'm very pleased about that. Am I going to split this episode too? No. We're going for the finish. Oh gosh, we have 50 episodes left. Yeah, I see what you mean. No, we're doing it. We're doing it, folks. Episode 54, The Engineer's Guide to Being a Good Craneista 2. It was another Crayons episode. We didn't really learn much in that one. No, because I got distracted and I ended up just looking through the kind of the North Pennine mainline route, right? That was kind of fun. We looked at that. Episode 55, a good episode. I think it was a pre-record, but we went into exactly why standard track gauge is 4 foot 8.5 inches. We looked at that. We answered the question. We solved it. It's done, folks. There's some nice detail in there, including actually the bit where I went off on one about the Killingworth wagonway. It's quite interesting looking at the old route of the wagonway and seeing how little is left. I quite enjoyed that bit. I quite enjoyed doing that bit. And we looked at the wagonway, and the reason this one's good because it's talking about early railways, and I want us to break out the idea that the railways started in the 1800s. They didn't. They started in the 1600s, and I want us to explore early railways a bit more. And I think some pre-record rail narratives will do that. Maybe do some on-location stuff, or go up to some of the locations of those early wagonways and understand the fact that railway history, it's really important, particularly for things like the implications of slavery on the railways, and the legacy of slavery on the railways. It's really important to not think that railways started in the 1800s, because if you break out of that narrative, you start understanding the fact why it starts being like, oh, railways didn't start then. There was a big surge in railways then, and it starts helping you to understand the kind of the cultural and economic and social reasons why that perhaps happened. Episode 56. It was a double guest episode. We've not had a double guest episode since. It was a bit intimidating because the challenge was making sure that Alistair and Kelly both had equal time to speak, and that was a bit challenging to juggle with the bad technology. Also, the echo was dreadful at the start because I didn't appropriately silence things in the chatter. It did work though. It did work. Once I fixed the horrible echo, the technology worked. It was quite good. It was a really good episode. Again, not so many people watched it, relatively speaking. It's a really good episode, a really informative episode on some of the stuff that we're all really passionate about. CNER is giving us some feedback on what I was asked about earlier. The SNP have retained power over most of transport. Greens have power on active travel and circular economy, but there are specific commitments that are trying to be got across the line. Okay, yeah, thanks CNER, that's good. CNER is the campaign for North East Rail, by the way. It has to be said, the new Transport Minister, Jenny Gilruth, is a big rail person, so fingers crossed. Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's basically the Institute for Government episode, and they looked at how transport policy is made, and it was good to compare how some of the things that are good about UK transport policy, but also lots of the things that are dreadful about UK transport policy. It was really interesting to compare those, particularly with like the Netherlands and looking at rail modal share. And yeah, it was good. Oh, I'm talking too much, and I've had a yawn, and I haven't had any dinner, and I don't have any fluid. That's all fine, though. Episode 57, what should the Welsh railway map look like? This was a legendary episode, because we did this stuff, didn't we? We mapped out we were kind of looking at my sort of way of modelling what a rail network should look like. And I want to roll this out to some of the kind of the regions of the UK. We've done Scotland, we've done Wales. The Scottish one I'm going to do again. I'm going to do another revisit of the Scottish one because I didn't do such a great job of it. Because I went into too much detail with the mesh and I didn't thin out properly. So we've got some algorithms that have done that work now, which people in the background working on in the Discord. Is there a rogue apostrophe? Wait, where? Oh gosh, yeah. Golly, how did I do that? That's dreadful. Thanks, Peter Tipple. Good grief. That's a disaster. Oof. Wait, go in here and do this. Oh, that's frightening. I need to... I literally will save this to solve that problem in the future. Good grief. Alright, I just saved that and now it's frost me. There we go. We're there. It's fine. Anyway, yeah, we were kind of drawing out our map, weren't we? It was great. We had our network map. I just was this through. Go on. Yeah, this is a good episode. We drew the map. Michael C is asking, do I think the Welsh map would look different if it accounted for places in England too? A little, perhaps. A little. I'm definitely to the southwest, Thomas Gray, don't worry. This one didn't seem like that long ago, did it? We looked at population areas. We looked at how you connect those population areas. So we've got these population areas. Yeah, they're the smallest population area. And then I think momentarily we'll have some lines start up here. Yeah, there we go. So we looked at how you'd have here's your kind of sort of major center connectivity, then your sort of large town connectivity, or sort of cities, smaller cities connectivity. Then it was the large town connectivity, and then it was the small town or even large village connectivity, but sort of small town connectivity. There you go. You can see obviously the valleys have that kind of pretty intense little network going on there. But this was I enjoyed this one. This was it really. it quite neatly made the case for why. The key thing about this was why the Welsh network's north-south connector should not be up the coast. It should be along the border. Anyway, it's good stuff. Episode 58 was fun. We collapsed Gerrard's Cross Tesco's onto the railway. It was good fun. We had some nice graphics showing a Tesco and a collapsed tunnel. We looked at exactly why that collapse had happened, so we understood. We looked at exactly how that how the work to construct the tunnel had resulted in there being that failure. We thought a bit about oversight development more generally. It was a good episode, that one. I enjoyed that. David Bumstead, yes, East Anglia. Yeah, we should do East Anglia as well, shouldn't we? Episode 59, it was actually a very upsetting episode because we looked at Carmont. We looked at the report. We had we had drivers in the chat talking about their experience. It was a good episode. It was a bit of a painful episode. And yes, we talked about some mitigations. So obviously there are operational issues here. And I think the main issues at Carmont were operational, but we looked at some of the mitigating factors that weren't in place. So for example, derailed vehicle retention, like guardrails, they weren't there. And then of course we looked at the fact that the HST shouldn't be in regular passenger service anymore. I vigorously don't believe it should be. I stand by that. And we looked at that through some evidence. And in the aftermath, certain people got very excited. I think David Shears used to watch the show, doesn't watch it anymore. David, for goodness sake. David got very uppity about forces involved in the crash and made a huge fuss about that and decided to, and entirely at the expense of concentrating on the actual evidence before us, which is about the fact that these are ancient rolling stock with no modern crashworthiness features. And we looked through that, and it was important that we did look through that. Episode 60, why bother with electrification? Well, we looked through the latest RIA report. It was a good one, actually. Looked at some detail at that report, in which David Shears had indeed contributed to it. David, come back and, stop whining. We want you back in the chat to input into this stuff. So yeah, very good. The RIA report was excellent. It was very good. Why bother with electrification? Indeed, well, because of lots of reasons. Then we looked at Bus Back Better, the Bus Back Better report, another page turn. That is a report which has been binned, or rather, at least Treasury have just gone, that's not happening. We're just not happening, mate. It was a very good document. Lots of good stuff in there, actually. I think we agree that it was good. Obviously, that's why Treasury have killed it. Now this is another. There are quite a few good episodes in amongst all these. The Pacers episode, Dr. Kevin Tennant joined us and explained in very precise and well-researched terms why Pacers were bad and saved absolutely nothing. So we looked at the costs here. There's a scan. There's quite a lot of copier burn. A scan here of the costs for different units. So the stock that was being replaced, the 108s, and then for half the price of those, the 142s, the Pacers, 254,000 per annum. The 150s were only 233,000 per annum. That's off the bat. So there we go. So they were just, Pacers were rubbish. And then there's other evidence. We're looking at the fact that it was fairly rapidly discovered that cutting operations on sort of rural lines would reduce the fleet requirement by a fairly insignificant amount, to the point where it was basically pointless. You didn't make any saving. So Pacers didn't save anything. The evidence is there. Then we looked at Williams Shaps. It was the first of a two-parter, and we discovered within Williams Shaps that within both of these, 1 and 2, we discovered all sorts. It's quite a complex and detailed exploration. It was like, what exactly is Great British Railways, and then what happens next? Well, we found out what happens next, which is that bad things happen next. And then we looked at the Scottish Railway map, and it was the same sort of story, wasn't it? I'm not so pleased with the result of this one, so I think I might revisit it. But it was still, we looked at the structure, we looked at some of the missing things, and possibly some of the ways that you connect up locations that are different to what the current network looks like. That were kind of interesting. It was still a great episode, an excuse to put up that fantastic picture of the Forth Bridge as well. And then we looked at, this is a fun one, episode 55 was why standard track gauge is 4 foot 8.5 inches. Then episode 66 was why it isn't 4 foot 8.5 inches. And this is great, I enjoyed this. In reality, standard gauge track is rarely, if ever, 4 foot 8.5 inches. Weirdly, I didn't 4 foot 8 inches, it should be 8.5 inches. I've started that. But yeah, it's basically explaining why rail by standard gauge track is rarely at this gauge, which is fun because it gave us an excuse to explore lots of permanent way stuff. So it was a good permanent way episode. I enjoyed this one. So, the next one, we were at Rail Live. It was the first pre-record episode. It wasn't too long, but it was still a bit long. But it was Rail Live 2021. I enjoyed this one a lot. It was a fun episode. Editing it was a bit time consuming because I'm a bit fussy with editing, as you might have noticed on any of my edited videos. But it was a good episode. It was a fun episode that hopefully you enjoyed watching. And for those who didn't, it's a pre-record, and I looked at and I was out on location. It was the first on location pre-recorded Rail Natter, and it was chaos. I looked at all sorts of stuff and said hi to people, and it was very friendly and good fun. And yes, and there's some bonus extra features for the Patreon people. As a reminder, that's all still on YouTube for you to go and watch. Episode 68, we had Danny Scroggins joining us, talking about the three generations of signaling, control, and interlocking. It's a great episode, other than me having to continually correct Signalman with Signaler. Danny. It was a great episode. Danny fantastically explained both signaling, control, and interlocking, the three generations of both, very well, including this kind of task, which was really a really good... It was just a fantastic episode. It was a long episode, but it was worth it, because it was a great explanation of signaling principles. Really, really good episode. Yeah. And then we had Steve, another signaler on. We had Steve on, signaling design engineer, episode 69. Nice. Talking about how to make trains go faster. And my favourite slide of this, I think, was this one. It was this one, because it was and I've used this in my day job quite a lot since, actually, on some line speed improvement stuff. And it was we have overrun time. Yes, it is now 2 minutes past 8. I'm sorry, everyone. We had 1 mile at 50 miles an hour is 4 minutes, and 1 mile at 40 miles an hour is 1.5 minutes. And then we showed that the high speed stuff, the difference between 125 miles an hour, you're saving the same amount, except that you need 20 miles of upgrades at the high speeds and only 1 mile of upgrades at the low speeds. And let me tell you, I have been utilising this knowledge on line speed improvement work for TFW, high TFW. I'm going to just say that. I've been doing that. And to great benefits compared to the previous reports that concentrated on lots of high speed, lots of like, oh, we're going to desperately increase speeds up to 75 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour. There's no point. Just increase everything up to 50 or 60 and solve all the slow stuff, and you make serious savings. Anyway, episode 70, reopening the Great Central is no alternative to HS2. In fact, what we kind of concluded in the Great Central episode is a bit like the Woodhead episode. It was a big red flag episode. Jack Elliott, yeah, it was a great episode, that one. But it was like ignoring all the stuff, and we looked at what would reopening the Great Central actually look like, and we realised that oh, good grief. Good grief. Let me just do this and do this. And also, I'm just going to scan down and make sure there's no more dang animations in the rest of this. There's not. There's also a lot of slides, though. So, let's keep going, shall we? Oh, we are going to get there. We worked out that basically HS2 is what reopening the Great Central Mainline would look like. It's not that it's not a good alternative. HS2 that is what the Great Central Mainline being reopened would look like. Then we had Ian Kitt joining us to have a historical look at what happened to all the freight, but actually a really good data-driven episode. Lots of fun stuff. This slide here with this little graph is probably like the most bleak. You just see freight just disappearing down, passengers rising, but freight no recovery. That's partly because we don't move as much bulk stuff around the country anymore, coal and steel particularly, but it is still quite a bleak. I think it's not quite as bleak anymore. It's climbing a little. Thanks to intermodal, but it's a bit bleak. We should be moving a lot more by freight, really. Oh, another two-parter. It was the UK's Transport Decarbonisation Plan. It's another classic page turn, episode 72. And which we concluded that we desperately needed to abolish the Treasury because the report was hopeless. In between the two-parter, though, we looked at electrifying motorways and whether it was a good idea. And we looked at we looked at some things. We looked at the fact that the chronic priority needs to be in getting HGV emissions down, and that was one thing. We were looking at relative differences in emissions between rail and road. The fact that annual HGV emissions are the equivalent to 1.4 high-speed 2s a year, which is pretty spectacular. And then we looked at some of the problems of why it was a stupid idea, such as engineering skills, carbon intensity, lack of drivers, speed of infrastructure rollout, unknown total system versus known total system, speed of road versus rail vehicle upgrade, funding model unwritten and untested, does nothing for urban logistics, and the fact that it's incentivizing the status quo. All of those issues, no biggies. And then we looked at maybe the key bigger problem with electrifying road is that electrification of rail enables modal shift. electrification of road embeds modal stasis. So we concluded that actually electrifying roads is a bad thing. Fine, do some trials, but actually it's a bad idea. Shouldn't do it. Demons, I know that you are... you're just kind of on the logic of like, it's electrification, it's good, and in a way, yes, and the technology kind of works fine, and I'm glad you sent me to look at the one in Sweden. It was interesting and very useful for this episode, but fundamentally I think that given the UK and the state of the UK, it's a bad idea. And then it was the two-parter, the other half of the Transport Decarbonisation Plan, episode 74, and we still concluded that we needed to abolish the Treasury, of course. And we had a lovely sort of mouthwash after that, a lovely sort of breath of fresh air, which was Bessie Matthews joining us. Bessie now driving freight trains on the main line, very exciting stuff. But it was Bessie's ballast, and we were looking at Bessie, and I just looked at the amount that Bessie raised for Samaritans, and looking at just this wonderful art, and just how much of an absolute joy. It was just a joyous episode. Bessie's just lovely, and it was just a great episode. Lots of fun. Just terrific. Just a lovely. Another the episodes where we look at arty stuff are pretty highly on my sparks joy kind of rankings. It's good stuff. And then another pre-record, on location pre-record, episode 76. We looked at this epic site where they're kind of building Britain's longest railway tunnel. We looked at how they're doing it, and we looked at this huge sort of landing area for, well, not just a landing area for the tunnels, but landing area for the big viaduct going the other way as well. And we, so we looked at these, looked at the whole site. I plodded around it pretty extensively. It was good fun. Richard Smith, passenger journey times and the benefits of reducing them, especially for revenue, ridership, social benefit, is something that the whole industry just does not get. So all sorts of things. So yeah, it's true, but also the industry doesn't get. Well, it does. The thing is, they do talk a lot about reducing journey times at the expense of everything else. So I have mixed feelings on that one, Richard. I know what you're driving at, though. So, yes, here is... Yes, exactly. David Shepherd, one of the problems with calculations of journey times is that missing a train can radically increase journey times if you don't have frequency. Hashtag frequency is freedom. Just going to put it out there. Anyway, I enjoyed this episode a lot. Go watch it if you haven't, because it was tremendous fun, and there are several gags in there. And I like doing editing gags. They're my favourite kind of gags, so go in and watch it. Thunderbirds features. And then another rapid-fire pre-record. This is a misleading thumbnail, because this is from that infamous video of me and Tim and David just cruising around the museum and being very pleased with ourselves. But episode 77 was whether I could natter for an hour in the Railway Museum North Shed. You're all like, obviously you can. I did this for real, and the result was far closer than I'd have liked it to be. And it would have been very embarrassing if I'd reached the end and found out in the edit that I hadn't reached an hour because of some of the phone fail shenanigans that occurred. So, Richard Smith is saying generalised journey time, which includes wait time. Yeah, good point. So that was good fun. I enjoyed that. And it's a good tour. If you want to go and find things, you can go and find where they are in the North Shed, what was called the warehouse in the Rail Museum. You can go and find them based on this as a navigation aid. So it's a good episode for that sort of thing. 78 was another beaching episode. It was a page turn through the first beaching report. And it was a good episode. We covered a lot. And again, we concluded to stop referencing beaching. But also, more importantly, we said, actually, beaching did a lot of good things. Beaching modernised the railway in lots of good ways. He gave us the double arrows. Lots of very, very good things. So it was stop referencing beaching in the way that people do. Hence the asterisk. And this is a very popular episode 79, looking at why there isn't an HS1, HS2 link, and considering what it might look like if there was one that was useful. And one of the things we looked at was what the potential interchange between King's Cross and St Pancras could have been, with the underground platforms running through, what that could have looked like. And I have to say, I'm eternally depressed that this wasn't built this way, because if it had been, it would have been fantastic. It would have been very, very good. Yes, they'd have bulldozed a load of buildings they shouldn't have, and they should have. But that was partly because we didn't have as sympathetic an approach to design as we do nowadays. We could have probably done a better job of it had we designed this as the terminus for HS1 and then built HS2 up northwards from it. What could have been. What could have been. Good episode. Episode 80, we got Gary back. Gary joined us, and we did go through the book this time. We went through the book and looked at it in some nice detail. The fantastic overhead line electrification for railways, the ultimate guide to railway electrification. Best explanations of OLE I've ever read, says an OLE systems engineer. David Horn, great to see the latest edition. Lovely David. We need to get David Horn on for a rail natter. David Horn, lovely David Horn. It'd be nice to have you joining us for an episode. That'd be great. Episode 81. Oh, another fantastic. Chris Valkoinen joined us to talk about the history of technical drawing. Very interesting episode. It's fantastic. Mike Waldridge is saying lots has moved since that episode. There was a few of us found before the episode 100 recording. Oh, really? Oh, I see. And people couldn't find the burger box. Oh, crikey. Sorry, Michael C. I think this image is one of my favourites, is the women on the drawing boards with their massive desks and just working away on these drawings. It's really cool. It's just a really kind of interesting, kind of vividly interesting image of something that feels quite familiar and yet quite... I mean, they're very socially distanced there. Let's put it that way. And then we came around, another year has passed, the Skills Gap episode again. Skills Gap, what? Skills Gap 2 with George Shilka of Young Rail Professionals. We kind of went through looking at all the problems. We were kind of a bit more kind of critical. We went through and looked at all the challenges we've got. We're looking at sort of all the challenges that we need to overcome. The only way to overcome the challenges is to actually list them off and understand them in the first place. So we're looking at inflation, wage inflation, the percentage of current workforce being female, lots of these challenges that we have in the industry. It was a good episode, that one. They don't get huge viewership, the skills episodes, but they are very important. It's worth going back if you're in any way interested in the industry and the challenges in the industry. They're good episodes to watch. Episode 83 was how do you fit bigger trains on the British Railway network? It was the Yorkshire Terminals gauging episode. That was good fun. I enjoyed this one. We got to explore this hole, and I got to explain what this spade is for. So it's a fun episode. Go back and watch that one. It ran a bit long, but it was a really fun, detailed one that I'd recommend. It was just it's me talking about a project I've done, so I got to talk in great detail about it. And then the next one was another thing that I care very deeply about. It was we will do a proper history of the Selby diversion in an episode, but this was sort of included a bit of that. But it was off the back of my appearance on architecture in series 3, actually, wasn't it? Episode 84, why isn't High Speed 1 Britain's first high-speed line? And we talked about the Selby diversion. The options for it, so some nice graphics there showing the different options for the Selby diversion. And of course, the old image, which is weirdly my desktop picture on that same very desktop. Very strange. Yes, there's Colton Junction, obviously. Famous, lovely Colton Junction. So, episode 85. A chaotic history of the early Crossrail proposals. This is a fun one. We got John Elledge back, actually, which is great. John was here plugging his book. It's a good book. I recommend getting it. It's good. It's purple. It looks very nice. Rail Natter, Crossrail, the collision. We'll do more Crossrail stuff, but it was interesting, not least for these kind of maps, showing the potential networks that there might have been. And sort of the fact that it went down to Ebbsfleet and then didn't, and then the fact that it was supposed to do more stuff coming out of Paddington and now doesn't. It was interesting. It was really interesting looking at the different bits, comparing the different proposals. Yeah. Cam Wright, I cheekily cited the Selby diversion episode in an essay for my master's. Ha! Good. If you can cite Rail Natter, then great, do it. All for that. Episode 86, Railways versus Climate Change, which was kind of a bit of a Q&A. We just sort of opened it up, didn't we? But this slide, UK potential annual GHG emission savings, it's a bit of a depressing one because it's like, if you fully decarbonise rail with a snap of your fingers, ow, my knuckles are still not quite right since I fell and staved on my fingers. There we are, there's a click. That saves 3.6 million tonnes of CO2 a year. 10% modal shift towards rail saves nearly 10 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent a year. But the impact of the fuel duty freeze last year was twice that again. 18 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent put into the atmosphere purely because of the fuel duty freeze. Absolutely bonkers. Yes. Matt Reed, after the diversion, did Selby suffer with train services? Possibly, yeah. Richard Smith, am I planning anything around the Cross Liz Purple line rail opening? Yeah, yes, probably. I'd like to be on kind of one of the early trains. Yeah, definitely. It'd be good fun to kind of do some Crossrail stuff. But I don't want to. I'd find myself. There's a chance I find myself repeating stuff that Jeff will be doing. So, yeah, I don't want to tread on other people's toes. Essentially, with that is that I'd probably end up being quite repetitive. But maybe I have my own perspective on it. I've worked on bits of Crossrail, so I can talk about some of the physical engineering that's happened. I've been down in the tunnels and stuff, so that could be interesting. Maybe I could do a bit of a presentation about when I went down in them and talk about how that was. And we got Tim back for Tim 3, episode 87, which was nice. Tim kind of went back through some of the 1 and 2 episodes, which I think because he was absolutely exhausted and had maybe forgotten that he had. But it was fine because we kind of gave a slightly different perspective on them. But it was also very nice to kind of go through each of the episodes and kind of recall what the point of it was. A bit of we did it deliberately, really, because it was a celebration of the fact there have been 30 episodes of Architecture. I really hope it comes back for a 4th series. Secrets is great, but I as a non-Londoner, I love the Tube. It's great. There's loads of fascinating history, but Architecture is just a bit broader. It feels like it looks at more things, and it's got more scope for different stories, more diverse stories in terms of different places around Europe and the world, and indeed the UK. So yeah, I do prefer Architecture to Secrets, I have to be honest. But there we are. That's nice, isn't it? All these different episodes of Tim looking pleased. And I can't believe they still possibly have me as the thumbnail for the Bishopstone episode. It's so strange. Anyway, there we are. That was it. 3 series of Architecture. Go watch them if you haven't. They're wonderful. Look at happy Tim there in a scarf that Francis Bourgeois has been wearing to things. Francis, step off Tim's turf. There's a line in the sand there, and not treading on Tim's scarf turf is that line. Get rid of the scarf. Wear a different scarf. Don't wear Tim's scarf. It's Tim's. You can see because it's in all of these episodes. It's Tim's scarf. Anyway, episode 88. Why is the eastern leg of HS2 its most important section? Well, this was a bit of a, oh look, they've got rid of all that episode, wasn't it? Pretty depressing episode. Particularly in light of what we know from the IPPR, looking at the necessary additional investment needed in transport. Remember, £12 billion a year extra needed to be spent in the UK on transport. $12 billion a year. How about interviewing Crossrail engineers with all the weird stuff they had to deal with? Yeah, we're definitely going to get architects in to talk about it, because I think that's interesting. Perhaps a joint pre-recorded Crossrail opening episode with Jeff. Thanks, Mercy in Studios, saying 2 of the most interesting railways people. Yeah, maybe we could do that. It could be fun. It could be that I go down and talk about some of the engineering with Jeff, talk about what I did. Yeah, could do. Also, hashtag abolish the Treasury, obviously, is something we learned from the IRP episode. Actually, this wasn't the IRP episode. It was the why the eastern leg of HS2 is its most important section episode. The next episode 89, was the IRP episode, and hateful, absolutely hateful. There they are: Sunak, Gilligan, Johnson, Shaps. Just hateful. Anyway, episode 90, Railways versus Leaves. This is an episode relevant to our buffer stop episode, because we were talking a bit about the Enfield Town. No, we were talking about Salisbury. What am I on about? We talked about Salisbury. I'm getting confused with myself. We talked about Salisbury, and we actually broke down some of it. We talked a bit about the science. We talked a bit about the physics going on with friction at the railhead. There we are. And we kind of came up with the solutions, which were, number 1, reduce risk from low adhesion events. Number 2, improve adhesion at the railhead. Number 3, avoid leaves reaching the rails in the first place, i.e. chop the damn trees down. Well, interestingly, I've just written and submitted a piece for Rail about trees and railways, so that should be interesting reading. And admittedly, it's quite a lot more of a nuanced position than this, but when it comes to leaf fall, yeah, there's a lot of places where trees just need felling. They're just overgrown. They're just like 40-year-old weeds. We're getting there, folks. We've only got 9 episodes left, and it's going to be an hour and a half episode, isn't it? Oh, good grief. Episode 91, a page turn through the UCR, the Union Connectivity Review. There he is, looking very pleased. The de facto boss of the whole railway. Sorry, Andy Haynes, but it's Sir Peter Hendy. Let's face it. There he is. He is very pleased. A lot of time for it. If ever we could, it'd be nice to get Sir Peter Hendy on as a guest. But yeah, he's much more of a political operator than I am, and sometimes it means he says things I disagree with. But behind the scenes, as we said before, behind the scenes, lots of me, I have to think that actually he does have the railway's best interests at heart. He is clearly navigating his way through some stuff. Anyway, we talked about why the Union Connectivity Route exists, and we talked a bit about it and the political context of why it exists, and the fact that I feel like it's a missed opportunity. There's a big missed opportunity there to talk about modal shift on each of these corridors, and they just didn't do that. Sir Peter Hendy personally didn't do it, but also the data behind it wasn't there to provide that backup. Episode 92, another on-location pre-record. That's good fun, wasn't it? We did the Warrington Dive Under, where we looked through the same view, but just in reverse 2 times. I should have done the cab view in the other direction, but anyway, I didn't have that chance because I didn't get that cab footage. I thought I did, but I didn't. But anyway, we looked at the Warrington Dive Under. We looked at the construction of it. Yeah, it was good fun. It was me on a dally with Tim going through it. But it gave me a chance to explain what it is and what it's for. It was good. I enjoyed that. And then we got into our holiday special. Actually, this wasn't quite a holiday special, was it? This was like the penultimate holiday special. We looked at the official Rail Natter Top 10 Classic Railway Films, episode 93. Cheekily, Sandra Crossing wasn't on that list, even though it's there in the background. But we looked at all these films, 10 fantastic films, all good fun. Yeah, that was yeah. I enjoyed this episode. It was quite fun to kind of to go through all of them like this. It was nice. And while I'm here, I'm just going to whiz in and just copy paste a thing. There we go. And if you liked film-related things, there's a new thing on the channel, An Engineer Watches. It's a new series that might or might not. Well, I think I probably will do a few more. It didn't take too long. But I look at the Mission Impossible train tunnel helicopter chase and break it down from an engineering perspective. And there are already things that I missed in this that people have pointed out. Not least the fact the train's on the wrong track running through to towards the tunnel. But anyway, it's for another time. But anyway, I enjoy that. It's a video. It's half an hour long. Go watch it. Enjoy. Yes, I do buzzers. If you enjoy the ping buzz situation, then you can go and watch that as well. Episode 94, we really did get into Christmas specials again. Now, episode 94 was 10 of the world's most edible-looking railway stations with the brilliant Emily Turner. Emily nearly burnt. Well, there was flame and fire live on the episode down the view screen. So yeah, if you want to experience that, then go for it. It was a very fun episode. We both got quite drunk and enjoyed looking at edible stations. And then Dr. DT joined us, and it was a really nice, interesting history data episode. Actually, it was brilliant. It wasn't just Edwardian style. We looked at Victorian era quite a lot. In fact, we looked at the uplift in traffic across the different operators through London in the week before Christmas for a given year, and it showed that there's a lot of people travelling long distance before Christmas. It was just lots of stuff like this, really interesting data stuff. Dr. DT, legend. Rebecca Wilkes, sorry Becca. Becca joined us talking about the Rhondda line. A great episode, a fantastic episode, really interesting going through. It's good to get political context, good to get the experiences of people, perception of rail, so that we as people who can make change happen in the rail industry remember that it's about people and goods, but for a lot of people, particularly for passengers, it's their experience is the most important thing, and we have to think about that when we're speccing stuff. And we talked about the politics was very interesting, particularly the section on Cardiff versus Westminster was well worth listening to, because it was also a good prep for this episode 97, about HS2 benefiting Wales. And yeah, in this one we're kind of like in Scotland. For Scotland, Westminster predicts HS2 benefits, but gives Scotland a 10 billion consequential. For Wales, Westminster predicts no HS2 benefits or even disbenefits, but it calls HS2 an England and Wales project and gives Wales no consequential. So it's just talking about how political this stuff is. Like, there's no science behind it. Barring consequences are nonsense. Like, there's no, government does as it pleases, basically. And essentially we come up with, don't use Treasury rules to argue the case for changing Treasury rules, because you're going to come up cropper. We're getting there. This is another great episode. Samir joined us to talk about the collapse of Carillion. These are a run of quite good episodes. They're quite a good load of good Rail Natter episodes. I'm quite proud of it as a thing. These are good. This is a fun one. And we looked at why the hell Carillion collapsed. We looked at its impact. We looked at the plonkers who were ultimately responsible for its collapse. And we looked at some of those deeper issues at play. The idea that successive governments of different colours have convinced themselves that they can build and maintain society cheaper than it actually just costs to build and maintain society. And they do that by outsourcing sort of reality, basically outsourcing reality to these organisations who just kind of basically just bend finances to try and succeed. And invariably they're just going to collapse, as Carillion did. Oh, and funny that, abolish the Treasury. And we got to our 100th episode 99. Look at that. The good and bad ways to stop errant trains. None of you thought lots of you thought it wasn't coming, but it was. And it was in support of York. Oh, actually, let's just remind ourselves. It was in support of York LGBT Forum. Let's remind ourselves of some of the highlights. Of course, it's these Class 31s being yeeted off the end of a funny little concrete plinth. Very strange. Yeah, it was to raise money for York LGBT Forum. And actually, on the episode, I said I'd raise £261.12, but actually, I hadn't included me and Dina's fee, and I don't think I'd included Matt's fee. Hi, Matt. In there. So, actually, having upgraded that, it went up to 291, so I just rounded up to 300. So 300 quid has gone to York LGBT Forum. I think it's not bad. I'll continue to round it up to the nearest 100 or the nearest 10, depending on where it ends up, for future episodes that are in person. But there is going to be another one of these. It's going to be in York. I don't know what the theme is, but it might end up being on the movable bridges. I don't know what it'll be. Suggestions for what you want what you want the next in-person episode to be. But there's another in-person episode is going to be happening. It'll probably be happening in maybe April, May time. So I don't want it to be too soon. I don't want to do them too often because no one will attend. But I'll maybe do 2 or 3 of those a year. Yeah, it'll be coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that. 300 quid to York LGBT Forum. Lovely. And there we go. We're back to now. 100 episodes. This is episode 101. Well, this is the 101st episode. It's episode 100, and we've done it. We've summarised them all. Was that useful? Yeah. The history of railways in York. That's probably quite an interesting one. Yeah, we kind of covered that in a previous episode. In one of the game live streams. But yeah. The in-person rail natters are brilliant. They were a lot of fun. We had a huge amount of fun. Loads of people getting involved. It was great. Let's go big face briefly, shall we? Oh. Here we are. I'm very hungry, and my brain is melted, and I'm very thirsty as well, because I don't have any liquid here. I could eat some chocolate, but probably best not to do that. Thanks, everyone. That was fun, wasn't it? I think that we kind of... What time is it? 1 hour 20. Let's get in before the hour and a half. Okay, let's get rid of my big face. Yes, I've had a haircut, everyone. Also, I'm dressed as my father today. Dad does this. He has the weird double collar thing and a t-shirt underneath, usually. So Eco Pete, shout out. Let's go back to this. So, this podcast, this episode, everything about this is available on all good podcasting platforms. And I mostly keep it up to date. I do it myself now, which means I kind of know it's happening. I think it works, and it's all centralized in one place. I need to, if I do a trailer, I will also then put that trailer onto Spotify and other places that need a trailer, a nice 30-second trailer. So yeah, do send in your suggestions for bits that are your favourite of the episodes. Sean McDonald says, thanks for this summary. I think I'm going to need to watch some older episodes. Absolutely. There's a lot of episodes that I've forgotten about that I think I will go back and watch, because even though I've been the host of said episode, I forget stuff in them and I learn stuff in them, not just the guest ones, but even some of the ones that I've just done as me. I kind of remind myself of things. So do. And as I say, yeah, please send your Rail Natter will tour the UK. The next one's at York. The one after that will be in Cardiff, by the way, just as an FYI, and that will be before the end of the year. So there's going to be one more York one and a Cardiff one before the end of the year. You heard it here first. Yes. So, podcast. Thanks to all the audio-only listeners. Feedback always welcome. And also everyone, do send in your trailer suggestions. And also any suggestions, do record them in the... So if there's some suggestions happening here in the chat, they might get lost. Do go into the Discord server if you're a Patreon person and put them into the polls channel so that they get collected. Talking of which, yes, Patreon people, patreon.com/GarethDennis, you are the ones who get to pick future episodes. I know it doesn't seem like this. I know the relationship between you picking them and me making them happen is kind of chaotic, but it does influence heavily what I'm steering. It pushes me to source guests for the ones that are at the top of the list. So it very much is value, and all of you give really good feedback on the episodes. It's always very useful, and on other stuff as well. Merch from Masquet. I need to get an Abolish the Treasury mug on the go. That'll be the next mug. But yeah, also do suggest if you want new merch other than the mask and the mug, do tell me. PayPal.me/GarethDennis to just chuck pennies and abuse at me. GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord is where all the good stuff happens. The YouTube chat continues. A reminder that this exists. I made this. Go watch it. It's kind of fun. It's a fun little thing. Regular, just a bit of YouTube content. I'll probably do more of these. But yeah, make suggestions for not whole films, but sections of films that have trains in them. If you want me to do a little engineering review of them, make that suggestion. And then next week next week is... This is why I was getting Williams confused in my head. Jennifer Williams is joining us. In fact, it's happened. We recorded it. We recorded it on Monday night. Episode 101, the 102nd episode. Will the government get away with the rail betrayal? It's a good episode. We talk a lot about politics. There's some fun diagrams in there about project betrayals in the north. You'll enjoy that. That's going to be a good one. Tune in. It's a pre-record, but do tune in for the chat. I'll possibly be in the YouTube, keeping up to date with the chat, because I think I'm going to be travelling that day, and then I'm away for a long weekend. Yeah, that's all that good stuff. Let's go back to Big Face. Here we are. Golly gosh, that's it. It's the end of the episode. We're 29 seconds over the hour and a half. Whoops. There's a few questions, but various Memnonia's takeaway from watching all these real narratives is various Gareth-isms, entering your daily language, including Crikey Mikey. Oh, sorry. I need to do some collaboration with the White Wicks. Absolutely. Yes. Richard Smith, on US TV, it's usually the case that once a show has got 100 episodes, reruns can be syndicated to local TV stations and the creators to make dollars. So congrats. There we go. We've reached syndication point. Who are we going to sell it to? I don't, and I will continue not to monetize these. Some of them have adverts on them because I've done a gentle copyright breach. Like, for example, the film one did, and also, what was the last one that did? I think possibly the last one did as well, because it had clips from Thames. Anyway, yeah. From my merch store, can I do an audio card that has Beeching written on the front that plays a klaxon when you open it? Yeah, okay. Yes, okay. Gareth for QI Trains episode next season. Oh, yeah, do it. Make those suggestions to BBC producers, or Endemol, or whoever it is who is the production company for that. Have I seen the removal OLE? It's not OHLE, it's OLE. Have I seen the removal OLE wires in Unloading Sign Wellingborough that Noel... I did, I saw him tweeting it on Twitter, yes. Michael C. YouTube puts ads on a bunch of your videos, despite you not wanting it to. Yeah, I think YouTube has the power. We do not have the power. I'm going to go get some food. Everyone, 100 episodes. I didn't even have a popper or anything that I can show it other than go, yeah, woo. But thank you, everyone. It wouldn't exist without you, in the chat particularly, but also everyone who watches. Thanks, and I will continue to do them as long as I can. If people occasionally ask me, what are the plans for the future, and will Railnatter die? It might at some point. Definitely when I do. Well, maybe not. Who knows? Someone might pick up the mantle, some apprentice of some kind, a little Padawan. But I have no plans to end it anytime soon. I will... Yes, adblock removes that YouTube ads. I watch YouTube on Chrome because I have adblock and it gets rid of all the ads. Yes. Here's to many more. Here's to many more indeed. I'm going to hold up this lovely mascot mug with Regional Railways logo on it. It's a lovely mug. Look at that. Cracking stuff. Because the Railnet one is somewhere else. Also the Regional Railways mask. All the Regional Railways stuff. Thanks, mascot. Thanks, everyone. You've all been great. I'm going to go and eat some food. And I'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the next live one. Which is going to be an interesting one, but we'll get there. Anyway, does my forehead go behind the big face? It does, yeah, look, that's clever, isn't it? Imagine if it went behind it. Imagine if my forehead was in front of it. That'd be strange. Right, enough waffle. Cheerio! Cheerio!